Hello, everyone. My name is Spencer Walsh. Welcome to today's episode of Newsflash. We have a good one for you, as always, because on today's episode, we are talking about live updates. The House is now poised to move forward with an impeachment vote against Trump. Here's how that's going to play out. The possible Republican support it could receive, more than you may think. Also, after 4 long years of tongue-biting silence that critics say enabled the president's worst instincts, the vice president said he would not yield to the name-calling and intense anti-democratic pressure from his boss. We'll take a look at Mike Pence, the vice president's role in what happened in the Capitol, and his continued role to play in the Trump White House for as long as it may last, and the Republican Party. Also, we will be taking a look at Mitch McConnell, how he privately is said to support the impeachment charge as the House moves against Trump. What role will that take? How legit is that support? And a new article about how the last thing we need is a war on terror. I'm getting into some of that on today's show. In this episode, Newsflash 470. Welcome in. All right, we are live today. That last part of it there about the war on terror is going to be so important for many people, especially on the Democratic side, people like Joe Biden, to take a close eye and comfort in, and we will need to really take we're going to take a very close look at it. So that is what we're doing, and also wanted to keep you posted on other. I would be absolutely remiss if I didn't remind everybody that, ladies and gentlemen, there is a new episode of Uprising out today. Just today. So I'm going to be talking about FDR on this one. It's very good. Just go check it out. Probably the best one we've done yet, if I do say so myself. How FDR was almost overthrown by a scheming group of rich people who really hated the New Deal at the time. So, and how that really failed because all of one heroic actions by one military guy that they tried to rope in, he said he was against it. So, Uprising, out now. Episode number 5, wherever you get your podcasts. Same place you listen to this, you can also listen to Uprising. So, why not go check it out? All right, that's going to be continuing up through the next 3 weeks at the very least. So, with that said, we can now finally get into some news. So, as it stands now, the House was poised on Wednesday to vote to impeach President Trump just a week after a rally where he incited his loyal followers to storm the U.S. Capitol in an effort to stop Congress from confirming Joe Biden's victory in the November election. Lawmakers will convene to debate an article of impeachment that accused the president of inciting an insurrection that led to the rampage by his supporters. So they're about 30 minutes. The vote after the debate is expected to pass with a small but significant number of Republicans joining Democrats to impeach Trump for a second time, which would make him the first president to be impeached twice. The action comes after the House on Tuesday night formally called on Vice President Mike Pence to invoke the 25th Amendment and strip Trump of his powers. So Pence rejected the idea before the debate on the vote even began, all but guaranteeing that the House would move forward with the impeachment. At least 5 Republicans have said they would vote to impeach the president. And according to people who have spoken with him, Senator Mitch McConnell has embraced the effort. So a very interesting condemnation came from someone like Liz Cheney of Wyoming, number 3 House Republican, who had said there's never been a greater betrayal by the President of the United States. Her announcement is likely to give cover to 24 or so other House Republicans looking to break ranks and join the effort to remove Trump from office. So Representative Kevin McCarthy said he is personally opposed to the impeachment effort, but not formally lobby members of the party against the effort, making an implicit break with Trump. Not a single House Republican voted in favor of the impeachment during the 2019 proceedings, which obviously makes a lot of sense. And the proceedings of last year were very much like that was kind of when you knew it was not going to happen. And there will be a fair amount of suspense if some of the reporting is true and Mitch McConnell actually does think that just kicking Trump out of there will be a clean enough break. You could probably find enough people to do it. You really could. Especially if there's a cooperative element of the Republican Party working forward, this is something that now is looking more and more possible by the day. When I previously thought, oh yeah, nothing's going to happen to him. It's not even going to be a big deal. But when Biden does get in there, that is the question. How will it kind of hamper the first few days of the presidency? And the question is also, another thing to watch here is the polling. How will the polling shift? Because we do see a very interesting and very, very telling drop in support. That is kind of in some polls, Morning Consult political poll, 34% now for the president. That is going to get you very close to the numbers that make this politically feasible for a lot of Republicans who are even in these Trump districts or in these districts of people that were kind of like previously supportive of Trump. That's going to make it very, very feasible. So if this holds, if this current trend of kind of like inching toward, like the vibe I get, and it's just a vibe, is that we are getting closer and closer towards a impeached Donald Trump here and removed Donald Trump. But when will that come? Will it even come? Those are all matters far from being settled. Yeah, and I think the interesting thing is like Liz Cheney really, I mean, this is like, you got to remember this is a Cheney we are talking about. Like, this is not somebody who's like, oh, I'm in it for the country. I'm just doing this from whatever I think the country is. I'm sacrificing my own personal morals. Like, there's a good chance Liz Cheney probably hated Trump from day one. And it really represents the two wings of the party. Like, please, we can just tone it down the racism a little bit, but we just want to start more wars. Or you just have this kind of like white resentment politics that Trump does, and it really has taken over the Republican Party at this point. Like, the era of Liz's father is really like that group of people probably have never really been farther from power under the Trump administration, but it really does look like if they play their cards right, they could take it in. And keep in mind, like the trap that people fall into is like, oh, Liz Cheney, what an upstanding woman coming out and standing against this impeachment. But there is no way anybody should like think here or look for a second positively at her, because the moment you're gonna like, she's not on your side. Like, that's the thing. And it's kind of bad that I even have to say this to certain people, but like it is a reality. It's gonna be some people are gonna do. They're trying to welcome a literal Cheney into the resistance. Like, that is like, that is just not something at all where we need to be. But it is really interesting to see that there are Republican members who were very strongly committed to Trump. It's very interesting to see Kevin McCarthy of California not backing Trump in this. So it is very, very, or not saying he won't back, not formally committing to lobbying the members in his party to say no. So that's just providing him more cover to vote for impeachment. But of course, where the real action happens, it's going to be in the Senate. So it really is a politically challenging and fast-moving crisis here at this point. A lot of buttons being pushed. A lot of, like, the ground here is really constantly shifting. Yet as Republican lawmakers try to balance their affection, the affection their core voters have for Trump and the now undeniable political and constitutional threat he poses, Republican congressional leaders who have loyally backed the president for 4 years were still stepping delicately. Their refusal to demand his resignation and quietly plotting about how to address his conduct highlighted the gnawing uncertainty that they and many other Republicans have about whether they would pay more of a political price for continuing to enable him or politically abandoning him. So that is the question that a lot of these people have weighed, and they're going to be looking very, very closely about the polls. They're going to be talking to their districts, because this could be it. And how many people in the Republican Party base, which is really all that matters at this point, Are they going to agree at least somewhat with the sentiment of storming the Capitol? Are they going to say, I could kind of see where they're coming from, even though I don't fully support the violence and literally crushing the life out of a police officer or multiple police officers with like fire extinguishers and just mobs dragging one of them out of the Capitol and then just beating them up in just horrific ways. Do some of the Republican Party kind of like support that? Maybe they do. Like that is the reality in which we are living in at this point. Like that is it. Like we are seeing this implicit support kind of from the base, but the question is, how long will it hold? And I think after a week, it is too early to tell, but we're definitely getting closer and closer to an answer here. So making their task more difficult here, Trump has shown no trace of contrition, telling reporters on Tuesday his remarks had been totally appropriate, and the specter of his impeachment was causing tremendous anger. So, yeah, he's back out there and saying the biggest crime that's been committed in this country in the past few weeks has been Democrats and others demanding my impeachment. That's his take on what's been going on there. So, yeah, no contrition, no sign of anything kind of being like, maybe we went a little bit too far here. Yeah, so very classic Trump there. Senator Chuck Schumer of New York, the Democratic leader, called on Mitch McConnell, his Republican counterpart, to use emergency powers to call the Senate back for a trial as soon as the articles were adopted. If that does not happen, a trial would really begin no sooner than January 19th. The next day, alongside Biden's inauguration, Democrats will take operational control of the Senate. So that's why I kind of called BS on McConnell always, because I read that he was going to keep the Senate out of session until January 19th, which almost sounds like a joke. Like, yeah, we could do the impeachment. We could do it on January 19th, literally the last day we can possibly impeach this guy. Or we're going to do it on January 19th, not as soon as possible. Like, that is a perfect Mitch McConnell thing to do. It's a perfect little middle finger to the face, and also a great indication of how he really views the threat. He can say privately, he can leak to reporters in the New York Times all he wants to try and appeal to a liberal audience that, I think Republicans have just been, or like the quote-unquote sensible audience here. Like, that is, if that's about as far as you can go, it's really hard to see how, like, it's hard to give you any kind of credit. Not that I should or ever will, because you just doesn't deserve any. Yeah, so that is the reality of the situation there that we are watching. Yeah, so Pence saying no on this is going to be also something to watch. We'll take a look at how he reached his limit next.
Something bad is about to happen.
Mike Pence, probably one of Trump's biggest political supporters, closest ally, has turned his back and really hurt Trump in the critical stage. We'll take a look at how he reached his limit here in this story, which is, of course, coming from the New York Times here on this one, as always. We got Peter Baker, Maggie Haberman, and Annie Carney here reporting on this. For Vice President Mike Pence, the moment of truth has arrived. After 3 years and 11 months of navigating the treacherous waters of President Trump's ego, after all the tongue-biting, pride-swallowing moments where he employed strategic silence or florid flattery to stay in his boss's good graces, of course, I remember some of the cabinet meetings that they had were just like, it looked like something out of North Korea where everyone was like, great job, Mr. President. Mike Pence out there leading the charge on that one. That really is how most of Americans think about him. That's how most Americans see him at this point, as someone who's just like completely tied to tied to Donald Trump at all costs. And him standing up in this way would have been a big change and a big turning point. And I did have this kind of discussion with actually my father last night, where he was like, gotta give Mike Pence a little bit of credit here. He stood up, he did a tough thing. And I mean, sorry, I'm not convinced. Read this article, see if it convinced me. But yeah, he pretty much at this point, last Wednesday, a week ago, Mike Pence was being cursed out by the president. Trump was in